But to add $9 billion in 1 year, that is a big deal. There is something going on here.
Something is cooking in Canada. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. We don't know what's cooking, but Mark Carney is cooking up something. I've been mentioning this on the channel for a couple of days now. Scott Reed mentions this on a panel on CTV. We got new polling data showing who's the favorite premier of Canada. We also have Mark Carney's new environment minister confirming that indeed Canadians must buy electric vehicles 9.5 years from now. Gas cars will not be allowed to be sold. They're going to force us to buy EVs even after the whole EV industry completely collapsed. Let's jump into this. We got this one from Table Salt. It says new Oxford Global City ranking puts Toronto at nearly last. It's at 240th for quality of life. As a result, residents of Toronto spend more of their income on housing than residents of nearly every other city in the world. That sums up Toronto right there. You could say the same thing about Vancouver. A lot of cities in Canada. Keep voting Liberals. Yeah, the clown world. Vote Liberal, get fleeced. And we got this one here. According to this poll, Ford leads all premiers on favorability in a landslide. How do you feel about each of these people? Doug Ford at 47% favorable, 21% not familiar, and 27% negative. The next closest, Francois Legault, Wab Canoe, Daniel Smith at 19%. Although you can see a lot of pushback with Daniel Smith here, 29%. David Eby is 17%, and it just drops off here. Half the country doesn't understand that Daniel is actually the most principled premier. Yeah, that's really the truth. Interesting to see both his and Daniel's unfavorables are similar. I don't doubt this data because look at the election. So many Canadians have no idea what's going on in our country. They voted for the Liberals again after they caused all these problems. So there is an education problem in this country. So I don't think this is necessarily wrong. A lot of Canadians just not informed. But this one was interesting. It says CIBC CEO has a big idea to help younger Canadians. For Canadians under the age of 30, raise the tax exemption threshold before they start paying income tax to $75,000. Young Canadians feel like there's nothing in it for them. We need to help them. That's a good idea. But I think a lot of people would argue who can't afford to buy houses that are 31, 35, 40, 45. They would also like that exemption too. I mean, they have to do something for the young people who are completely screwed, but it's not just the young people that are screwed here. I don't think the Liberals are going to do anything though. Considering they brought in this problem, do they really want to fix it? I don't think so. Like some people saying here, that's nonsense. Help everyone not under a certain age group. No representation without taxation. Those that pay the freight should make the rules. Quite the developments we're having here today. So Modi got an invite from Mark Carney to join the G7. It's funny because this is no longer a G7. Someone else who got invited here is Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. This guy who's also being invited to the G7. And with that, we've got Mark Carney announcing 2% funding to Canada's military.
All right, we're gonna plan a deployment here.
Getting Canada deployment ready is at the heart of Mark Carney's latest promise.
Canada will achieve NATO's 2% of GDP target this year, half a decade ahead of schedule.
I think he wants to do this to look good at the G7. That's what this is. This looked really dumb though to start here. Oh, are we going to plan a deployment here?
All right, we're gonna plan a deployment here.
It's like he's a kid playing a game. One of the people coming to the G7 is Donald Trump. Today he announced this. For every U.S. citizen born between December 31st, 2024 to January 1st, 2029, for his entire term, the federal government will make a one-time contribution of $1,000 into a tax-deferred account and track the overall stock market, basically putting it in an index fund. Every kid will get a $1,000 index fund savings account. This is amazing stuff. This really sets up kids to have a successful future, and they go on to quote that kids who have savings accounts tend to graduate high school, and they have a bunch of stats like that. So Trump came out with that today. Trump will be at the G7. We've got this panel here on CTV talking about this. As I mentioned before, when Mark Carney announcing all the spending to our military, $9 billion he's committing so far. Is this part of a negotiation? Is there already a negotiation done in the back end? And this is one of the key pieces. And Donald Trump wants to announce it at the G7. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. Donald Trump loves the big reveal, so maybe that's what they're doing.
With you, what do you think the impetus strategically was for this announcement right now?
I think three things. Certainly the G7. Second, the NATO summit that's coming up. But I think also there is the possibility that this is also triggered by ongoing discussions with the United States. All of these things seem to be demands upon the public purse in terms of more defense spending from Canada. And I would just say this, and there is a climate crisis. There is a consensus, suddenly it seems, in the country to do big things and do them quickly. But boy, oh boy, Mark Carney campaigned as a leadership candidate and then as a prime minister in terms of moving up our defense spending. But to add $9 billion in 1 year, that is a big deal to level up in that fashion. So to me, there is something going on here. It is either that Mark Carney has come to the conclusion that the only way to compete on the world stage, to do our bit and to manage our way in the G7 and NATO is to do this, and or he's come to the conclusion this is a necessary precondition for a trade and security deal with the United States. It could be both things. It might be neither. I don't know. But you don't spend $9 billion ad infinitum for nothing.
This might be Mark Carney joining Rearm Europe, making this commitment, and then Brookfield on the back end, having connections to companies. I know that Brookfield is connected to this one here, Brookfield Global Relocation Services, $157 million contract with the Canadian Armed Forces. You can see here, audit torches Carney-linked firm. Auditors cited errors and inefficiencies in Brookfield Global Relocation Services. This article says here, this $157 million military relocation contract awarded to Brookfield Global Relocation Services was supposed to make life easier for 12,000 soldiers and families who move each year. Instead, errors, delays, inefficiencies, damaged morale, missed deadlines, confusion, wasted taxpayer money. So Brookfield has their fingers in a lot of stuff, including the military. So I wonder if there's something else going on here with Brookfield and all of that $9 billion of spending. Stay tuned.
But these are stacking up to be, very expensive promises, not just today, but other ones that have been made at a time when he's also saying he'll cut on operating spending and achieve certain results there. And today he was asked how that's going to happen. Again, he was like, the numbers are coming later on in the fall.
I do enjoy how Prime Minister Carney bats down questions at press conference, just saying, we're not talking about that today. That might get a little bit old pretty quickly. But look, clearly, Prime Minister Carney is making very ambitious and expensive promises, and he has to fulfill those at some point, right? He's talked about these nation-building projects with the premiers getting that going. He's just snapped his fingers and decided he's going to spend $9 billion more in defense. I think Scott's absolutely right that it appears to be tracking towards some sort of deal with the United States. And there's probably, if that does happen, a tremendous amount of goodwill among the public if he's able to do that. But you only have so long with the public, so much goodwill with Canadians.
I think he's only got 2 weeks, because if they go on vacation, summer break, and everyone's sitting here waiting, what's going to go on? Are you going to negotiate a deal? And Carney's too busy off in Europe or somewhere else, maxing and relaxing. That's not going to sit well with people. And whether he's doing that or not, that's what people are going to think he's doing. So he needs to cut a deal. He needs to make a deal. He needs to actually take action, not just talk about taking action. Otherwise, his current polling numbers are going to plummet.
Several months probably before they expect results. And so the chickens are going to come home to roost when we get a look at the books, when we see that budget, when we see how they're going to pay for all of this. Are people going to get fired? He says they're not. How are they going to cut spending? What kind of programs are on the chopping block? We don't know. So I think the announcements like today leave a lot of unanswered questions, and he may not have to answer them today, but at some point the Prime Minister is going to have to provide a more detailed spending plan to Canadians.
Mark Carney doesn't seem too enthusiastic about doing that. He doesn't want people to see the books. He doesn't want people to see his plan. Coming from Mr. Banker, wasn't he the guy who's supposed to have a plan? Apparently not. I think Carney realizes he was voted in to do something, so he can't be seen being passive anywhere, let alone the military. Now, the question I have is, will this money be spent to improve domestic military industrial complex, or would we still be catalog shopping? More spending without a budget. I do not believe Carney. How can anyone believe him? No budget. On this episode of Faroff Ripoff, we've got this one, support for African Union champion for peace. Well, that sounds interesting. $250,000 going to project aims to support the government of Angola's efforts to create regional stability in sub-Saharan Africa through conflict resolution and mediation. This one's a first. Haven't come across something like this. They're spending our money to try to stabilize African countries. What a waste of money. This is not where our money should be spent. It says Angolan initiative to establish and implement sustained peace between the governments of the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. What? I think this is ridiculous. I don't think this is going to this. Are we honestly going to believe that they're sending our money to do this when it's going to the DRC? Come on. This country is highly corrupt. Same with Rwanda. Do they honestly expect us to believe this crap? We got this one here. Climate resilient livelihoods for women in northern Ghana. $7.7 million. This is a lot of money. So this is going to, this project aims at improving the resilience of agricultural livelihoods by promoting the adoption of gender responsive climate smart agriculture practices. Okay, yeah, like that's a thing. Once again, money just being flushed out the window. Now, what's remarkable about this one, you see here, $7.7 million. The budget on this when they started, $60,000. What happened, guys? How did that balloon to $7.7 million? That's a bit of a difference there. This is all useless nonsense. Next up, we've got quite the clip here from Dan Mazier. It says, breaking, Mark Carney's environment minister just doubled down on radical plan to ban gas-powered vehicles by 2035. That means no new gas trucks, SUVs, or cars. They want to ban all of the gas vehicles in 10 years. Less than 10 years, like 9.5 years, no more gas vehicles.
The Liberals promised 100% zero emissions car sales by 2035 in their platform. Does the minister intend to keep that policy? Yes or no?
Minister.
Mr. Chair, let me begin by saying that it has been absolutely one of the worst things to see the unjustified tariffs from the United States against our auto sector. We will have our auto sectors back, and the workers in that industry, we have their backs.
So this lady here, Julie de Brussen, is the new environment minister, took over from Stephen Guilbeault. She's just as bad as he is.
To keep that policy, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, as I mentioned before, as we move forward, we need to make sure that everything we do...
Chair, does the minister intend to keep that policy? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Chair, transportation sector is actually 27% of Canada's GHGs.
Is the government's target for 100% zero emissions vehicle sales by 2035 mandatory or optional?
Mr. Chair, he's aware that the regulation sets us towards targets to increase the number of sales of EVs across our country.
Well, member.
Is the target mandatory or optional?
It's a regulation that sets out clear targets for the sale of EVs. And
so basically every single year, the threshold gets higher and higher. More and more EVs have to be sold, less and less gas-powered vehicles. They put a huge tax penalty on it that no one would buy the cars afterwards, gas-powered cars. Not only that, they dumped so many billions of dollars of our money into all these EV companies that all went bankrupt or moved to America. This is such a joke.
According to the Liberal Party's website, the government's, and I quote, set a mandatory target that all new light-duty cars and passenger truck sales be zero emissions by 2035, end quote. Is this statement correct?
we do have in place a regulation that sets consistently increasing targets for EV sales going to 100%. And there are also flexibilities built within that regulation that if we wanted to have a larger conversation about, we could speak about.
Remember,
the government's regulations prohibit the sale of new, fully gas-powered cars in Canada after 2035. Yes or no?
Minister.
Mr. Chair, the regulations have been set out as to setting towards how we make more EVs available to Canadians, moving in different progress strikes all the way to 2035. And that regulation remains in place. But we are certainly looking at
the honourable member.
This is Stephen Guilbeault's policy. Nothing has changed. Different minister, still supporting it. This is the same Liberal Party. Nothing is different here aside from Captain Schmuck, Justin Trudeau, is out the door, and now we've got Mark Carney. Nothing else is different.
Will this regulation prohibit the sale of new, fully gas-powered cars in Canada by 2035? Yes or no?
We are making sure that EVs, which are actually a very strongly growing segment of the world economy for sales.
Does the minister trust her department?
The honourable minister.
Mr. Chair, that is such a strange question, but obviously I work on and with the public service, and we should all be very proud of the work that they do.
the minister take her department's advice?
Mr. Chair, is the member opposite questioning the quality of work that comes from our public service? Because I believe that we have a
That's not what he said. You know it.
very strong public service that I am proud to work with.
Member.
Question was, Mr. Chair, does the minister take her department's advice?
Mr. Chair, what I said is I work with a strong public service, which we have, that provides strong advice on which we base policies absolutely.
This is such a clown show. If we want to buy gas-powered vehicles, we should be allowed to, not forcing us to buy EVs. They want to be able to control everything. Just think of this. If they had control over every single EV, as in they could just turn them off whenever they wanted to, have them connected to the internet, flick the switch, the electricity goes off. They don't have control over the population. That's what it seems like to me. Gas-powered vehicle, you can't have someone sitting in a control room and just turn off someone's car remotely. That could be one element of it. It could just be, they got a bunch of stocks in those companies and they want to boost that sector to get rich. Who knows? It's probably all of the above.
Has the minister read her department's regulatory impact analysis on the zero emission vehicle sales mandate? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
In fact, I have worked on the regulation specifically. I was actually the one who made the announcement.
So smug.
Yes or no?
Minister.
I worked on that regulation directly, spoke with industry, and understand the impacts in the RIAS as well.
How much money will the government's zero emission vehicle mandate cost Canadians?
Mr. Chair, we're talking about an industry that employs many Ontarians, which is my home province, and I work.
The minister's department stated that EV mandate regulations, and I quote, are estimated to have incremental zero emission vehicle and home charger costs of $54.1 billion. Why is the minister supporting a policy
The Honourable Minister.
There it is, $54 billion. That's the cost to all this garbage.
I am proud that the rebates we provided allowed 546,000 zero-emission vehicle purchases to be supported.
It's those rebates to push this whole new industry that nobody wants, that doesn't really work here, that I'm guessing somebody has stocks or stock options in. Same old Liberals.
Order.
We definitely need some order. Will dealerships offer towable generators for winter, or do we have to build our own? How are we supposed to get around Liberal flying carpets? It's so they can shut your car off if you leave your allowed area. Well, that's a more draconian idea than what I was thinking, but that's possible. It's her refusal to answer, which is infuriating. It is. Why she work there? What's the point? Why is she getting paid $300,000 a year to not answer questions? She answers to us.